Is this the rebirth of the old iconic Ford Capri from 1969? Welcome to It's Only Electric. It's time for a full review of the fully electric Ford Capri long-range all-wheel drive premium edition. So this may be the best angle to be able to see the similarities between the old iconic Capri and the new one, especially when you look here at the rear part, the coupe version of the Capri. As you see here, the round shaped window, very Capri iconic. Also, the coupe shape is very similar to the old version. Other than that, there may not be that many similarities. We have some in the front, more about that soon. The Capri measures 4.65 meters in total length with a wheelbase of 2.8 meters. The curb weight just about 2.1 tons. This is a mid-size SUV or CUV built upon Volkswagen's MEB platform. It's built in Germany by Ford themselves, but on Volkswagen technology. The battery pack between the wheels is the biggest one available for the Capri. Since it's the all-wheel drive long-range version, it has the newer pack with a gross capacity of 84 kilowatt hours and a net capacity of 79. It has a total WLTP range with these 20-inch rims of 560 kilometers. It's a NMC pack, so you regularly charge it to 80 or 90%. Driving on 20-inch aero wheels, this is not any plastic covers, it's aluminum. The tires is Goodyear Ultra Grip Performance Plus. It's a staggered setup, so 235s here at the front, 255s at the rear, because the rear motor is more powerful. Whilst talking about power, the combined output with the two motors, since it's an all-wheel drive car, is 250 kilowatts or 340 horsepower. 679 Newton meters of torque. The sprint from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour should take 5.3 seconds with a top speed of 180 kilometers per hour. Another modern interpretation of the classical Capri is the new headlights. Instead of having two round headlight units at the front on each side, we have these LED lights packaged in the same way as the old one, and maybe the most iconic part is the grille. I mean, the old one had a grille going through the whole front end of the car, a narrow grille, and this is the way of resembling that. A black bar with a big Ford logo on top. Underneath that, there is a frontal parking camera to assist the 360 view when parking the car, and a closed grille with a big Capri text in the middle, and the flat shape here is the frontal radar for supporting you with the self-driving capabilities. Parking sensors, as you see here in the lower black part. I'm not sure about the front, but they have at least tried to do something different and tried to pick up some design elements from the old car, and I get the point with it. I'm not sure that I like it, but I accept it. One of the good things with the new slightly bigger battery pack is the charge curve. I mean, despite being only 400 volt, the fast charging from 10 to 80% takes 26 minutes only. This is the charge port placed on the right rear fender, and the peak speed of fast charging, DC charging, is 185 kilowatts. We're gonna try that in the next video, where we always test the 10 to 80% charge curve and the charge speed. Stay tuned for that one. I will put the link up here when it's available. Home charging, 3-phase support, 11 kilowatts. I mean, 26 minutes, that's probably as good as it gets on a 400 volt charger. Let us have a look at the rear design of the Capri. As in the front, there is a bar connecting the two taillights. In this case, it's transparent with a 3-dimensional big Capri text. I think it looks good. It's a good optical thing. On top of that, the big Ford logo type. As you see, a very sloping coupe shape here. It doesn't need any rear windshield wiper. And another thing that you may have been noticed is that it's a very flat shape here. There is a non-bumper design, as I call this, so the bumper is non-existing. If you back into something, you'll probably ruin the whole rear end of the car. So that's the downside of it. The positive side of having a non-bumper design here at the rear is the practicality. The premium package, by the way, comes with power liftgate, but also a kick sensor for convenient opening. That's the positive side. It hides some extra boot capacity, 576 liters. By having a non-bumper design, you will have a slightly shorter car and maximizing the interior space, or the boot capacity in this case. I think this has the biggest boot capacity among all MEB cars built on this size of mid-size SUVs. I mean, compared to the ID4 and compared to the Explorer. This is, by the way, 18 centimeters longer than the Ford Explorer. That one is SUV shaped, so a bit more boxy, but it still hides a lot more boot capacity. And there is a multi-storage floor here, so you can remove these parts and put them down to give you some extra boot capacity. And there is another level here at the bottom for storing cables, etc. And a very small subwoofer hidden underneath here. Otherwise, good storage. Foldable seats, 40, 60. Unfortunately, there is not a tree folding system, but you still have a ski latch, which saves you if you want to go skiing without a roof box. Possible to equip with a tow hitch. This one has it with a tow capacity of 1.2 tons. That's a bit disappointing, but for you guys that already know about the MEB cars, it's probably expected, yeah, isn't it? A smart thing here from Ford is this. So the side storage compartments comes with a kind of a bin for storing your cable. That's a very clever way of getting rid of the cable, and very organized and easy to reach and put back into it. And you don't need to struggle with the cables laying around here. I think that's a good idea. 12-volt outlet and some decent lighting at the back. And of course also cargo securing hooks. Let's have a look at the back seat. Door closing sound solid, but there is a big but. Very hollow sound. Compared to the other MEB cars from Volkswagen, Skoda, etc., this one feels a bit more hollow. It feels like there's nothing underneath these plastics. No insulation, because very strange sound. Other than that, there is a nice amount of storage or space here. When it comes to headroom, let's start with that. I'm able to like stretch out and slightly touch the rear side of the headliner because it's sloping downwards since the coupe shaped rear. And still, despite that, okay headroom. This one doesn't have the panoramic glass roof, that's extra. So a bit darker in here than normal. Normally the press cars tend to have the panoramic glass roof. One thing that you may have noticed is this one. This is a very annoying positioning of a reading light. It's really getting into your eyes because it's really bright and it's disturbing. This is not a good position for a reading light. I mean, it gives you the light, but it also disturbs you. It's kind of gives you flares in your eyes. Would I prefer to have it here, especially when you don't have any glass roof on this car. So very disturbing. Maybe I should turn that off. Or maybe not. Keep it on. When it comes to legroom, as you see, I do fit, but my knees are slightly touching the back of the front seat. It's adjusted after my driver position, so I'm 193 centimeters tall or 6'4". So I'm tall for being put in the back seat, but still good to know. I can squeeze my feet underneath the front seat, so there is enough of room for my feet, and this is in the lowest position, so despite that, still possible. Okay room here at the back, and I like the fabrics, the fake leatherette. I mean, it feels okay, but especially looks better than a lot of the other cars with fake leatherette, because I like the pattern of the stitching. I think it was the same one in the Explorer. This is a good looking stitching. I think it gives us a bit more of a premium feeling. Some pockets here for storing things. And the mid console consists of 2 manual air ventilations, and on top of that 2 lit up USB-C ports for charging your phones. Here in the middle we have a armrest, the exact same armrest setup as in all other MEB cars. Cup holders, non-adaptive, 3 different sizes. They are rubberized, so not that slippery. And as I mentioned, it has a ski latch, so we can unfold that one to load longer things, and I'm still possible to travel here at the back, so 2 grown-ups can travel with this one folded. Individual headrests, cushioned and good as in all MEB cars. I have a hard time utilizing it though, because when I really rest backwards or lean backwards, then I'm touching the part of the headliner, and that's sad. But if you are 6'4", you won't be able to use that one. The materials as such, I'm talking about the doors. They are like on all MEB cars, only plastic. There is some slight cushioning on the armrest, that's good, but still very hard. It's almost not any cushioning at all. Otherwise, very, very, very harsh plastic here. And a very simple design. This is not really living up to the price of the car. But that goes for all MEB cars. Let's move on to the front. Let's do the door sound check. See if it sounds the same way as at the rear. Solid sound, but still a bit hollowish. Better than at the rear, but you hear the metal sheets like vibrating, giving you kind of an echo. That's what I mean with the hollow sound. I don't think I have heard that on the other MEB cars. But let's move on. This car is running the premium equipment, the premium version, so it comes with some extra stuff. As I said, the convenient opening of the rear of the boot, but also the premium sound system from Bang & Olufsen. Let me start with that one. This is not Bang & Olufsen as you used to know it. This is just kind of a branding thing, I think, because it doesn't sound like Bang & Olufsen in any way at all. I think one thing is the lack of insulation and capsuling of the speakers, because the sound just disappears and doesn't fill up the cabin enough. And it's a 10 speaker setup, 425 watts, with a subwoofer in the boot. That's included among those 10 pieces. On top of the dash, there is a soundbar. This is not a soundbar. It looks like a soundbar with built-in ambient lighting. It's actually only one tweeter. So there is one tweeter here placed almost at the center above the screen. Otherwise, there is no soundbar things in this one. Okay, let's move on. So the premium sound is probably a lot better than the standard sound with 7 speakers, but it's not good. And it doesn't matter how you tune the sound, do the settings on the screen, it doesn't sound good. And when you crank up the volume, it's very limited. And it starts to get distortions at higher volumes, but still not high volumes compared to other systems. And this is one of my main complaints when it comes to the MEB cars. But when I tested the Cupra Born last week, that one had the Sennheiser sound system. That was actually good. That was the best MEB sound yet. But I'm not talking about the ID7, MEB Plus platform, the regular MEB platform. The ID7 has a good sound system. This one, not that good. Steering wheel is a bit different. you see the similarities to the other MEB cars. I have done detailed reviews about this interior before. It looks, as far as I can remember and tell, exactly the same as in the Ford Explorer. That is necessarily not a bad thing. I think this is a bit better than the ID4. For instance, I think this is a bit more car-y, a bit more Fordy. You feel that this is another car design, another brand. I think the most obvious reason is the steering wheel, the logotype of course, but also the layout of it. It's a bit different, but it still has this haptic touchpad where you need to struggle a bit because it's really hard to change the volume and find the right buttons for the first thing. And the second thing is, when you find them, it's hard to use them, especially things like volume, because you can both swipe and press, and it gives you some haptic feedback. That's quick and really nice to have, but it's still a bit fiddly. That also goes for this bar here. Do you hear the sound? Yeah. The other thing that's more or less iconic for Ford is the vertical screen alignment instead of horizontal. That's also a big difference compared to the other MEB cars. Like it or not, it's more integrated into the dash, and you can actually change the angle of it. So if you want a more straight angle and reach the top part easier, then this angle is better, more vertical aligned. If you like it to be more smooth looking, then you should pull it downwards, and it gets more integrated. The cool thing is that it hides and doubles as a storage compartment, mechanical lock. So when you lock the car, this compartment also stays locked. The thing is that it hides two USB-C ports. They are a bit far reached. You can reach them. The easiest way is to straighten up the screen as much as possible. Now I'm fairly tall, so I have a hard time seeing it. I really need to lean downwards to find those two ports. In front of that area, there is this haptic area, the volume control, the power on and power off of the sound system, the hazard lights, and the park assist activation. Even further down there is phone storage, so you have two slots for storing your phones. Very good position of it. Sad thing is that the Qi charger, as usual, is really hard to use. Doesn't work for my phone. Sometimes it does, most oftenly it does not. And it doesn't matter if I turn it the opposite way around, it still doesn't charge. Two cup holders, they are deep, so you get kind of adapters, so your coffee cup doesn't disappear. And it's a modular mid storage compartment, so you can actually remove the cup holder and replace it with kind of a tray for small storage, or if you don't want anything else, you will have a big hole here. But it can store a laptop of 15-inch, so it's a big storage compartment. It's also not that well built, but it fills its purpose, and storage is always good. There is no charge ports in here, but a lot of storage. The armrest, cushioned, nice design to it with this stitching on top of it. I like that one. And the cushion on the left side for the elbow is a lot better than at the rear. You have a bit more cushioning, fake leatherette. It's fine. And the materials is a bit better than at the rear also. So this is also a soft touch part. This one is also soft. So from this part and downwards, it's hard plastic, and it has this classical MEB power window controller. So only two levers for controlling the windows. So either you control the rear compartment, or you press it and you control the front windows. The instrument cluster is the same, 5.3 inch. There is no gear selector on side of it. The gear selector is, as in the newer MEB cars, placed here. So this is the one you switch the gears with. So as usual, they have D and B for drive and brake. Brake stands for regenerative braking. To the left you have the indicator and light control, but also windshield wipers at the front because there is no one at the back. Heated steering wheel, heated seats, and this is the standard seats. They look good with the same kind of stitching as at the back. There is not any adjustable headrest. It's still fine because it's cushioned and okay placed. But there is a ergo seat option. If you really think the seat is important, I think you should opt in for that one, because these seats are okay, not more than that. I mean, the driver's seat is powered. You have a lumbar controller, 2-axis. This is the maximum angle of thigh support. Still leaves some support to wish here, and there is no extension of the thigh support. The ergo seats is probably a better bet if you drive a lot or if you are tall like me. The software as such is the same software that runs on the other MEB cars. It's a bit differently layout, especially since it's vertical instead of horizontal, but you find the same kind of functionality. This is skinned more towards Ford's design, so it looks a lot different than the other cars. This is the starting screen, and you have like tiles and layouts which you can customize. Sometimes it gets a bit laggy, but I haven't experienced any specific bugs. I have actually, one, all the icons turned or disappeared. That was a bit strange, but it reappeared after a while. I think that's the only software issue I've had. Otherwise, I think it works good. And there's a lot of information, and all these tiles act as shortcuts. This is regarding charging. And when it comes to charging, as I said, this is a good charger. Charges fast. The good thing is also that you have a section called Optimize, and that's the battery heating. So you can actually manually activate the battery heater to precondition the battery for the best possible charge curve and the shortest amount of stop time at the charger. I always prefer to have this manually activatable, not only by automation, because it turns on when navigating to a fast charger if it thinks it's necessary, if you use the native navigation in the car. But if you don't do that, you can still manually turn that on. Another thing that I really like is the support for wireless, Android Auto, and wireless Apple CarPlay. And this is one of the parts where the vertical screen actually turns out to be a good thing. Normally, I don't like vertical screens, but when it comes to Android Auto, that I use a lot, it really makes sense, because Android Auto is really good to optimizing the space the right way. You get the navigation on top and all the widgets down below. So media controls, etc., gives you kind of a good split between the necessary information and the more secondary information. Android Auto is better in vertical mode than in horizontal mode. Otherwise, you have the shortcuts customizable on top. You can jump between the bright and the dark theme. I always prefer the dark one because it goes better together with the interior in most cars. And the top widget banner here is to customize and put your shortcuts. I always tend to put my favorite shortcut, and that's the shortcut to deactivate the speed limit warning. So instead of 3 presses or trying to find that in the menus, you can just press that one, then you get direct access to the speed limit toggle. So 2 clicks away, and then you deactivate the speed limit warning. That's easy. One thing that really annoys me is this one. This is the app drawer, and you switch between the applications. Nothing strange. The sad thing, or the very annoying thing, it took me some time to understand that you can't swipe at this empty area. You need to swipe on top of the icons to be able to toggle between the submenus or the pages. You can't do it below the icons. Here, this is kind of a dead area. Let's start with the drive modes. There is two general modes for putting it into drive. D and B, I briefly mentioned that for a moment ago. D stands for drive and B stands for brake, where brake is the constant amount of maximum regenerative braking. It's not one pedal driving as in all other MEB cars, it's continuous rolling around 6 or 7 kilometers per hour. But it's still linear and always there, so you don't need to like adapt to it. It's always presented for you, so that's good if you like regen. If you put it into D, some MEB cars will have paddles for adjusting the amount of regenerative braking. This one does not have that. No paddles in front of the steering wheel, so it's clean, and there is no other adjustments. That means that it's utilizing automatic regenerative braking. And what do we mean by that? That means that when you let go of the accelerator, as I do now, it keeps rolling. It's coasting with a very, very small amount of regen, almost none. And it adapts the regen depending on the conditions. So now I'm going slightly downwards. It adds some regen, probably because of the speed limit here. And if I have cars in front of me, it will also add regen, and it will increase the amount of regen the closer you come to the car in front of you. So it adapts to the conditions. And that's the only regen settings you have, B or automatic in D mode. And it doesn't change depending on the drive mode. It's always the same functionality. Let us jump over to the drive modes. There is no button dedicated for switching the drive modes. There is nothing on the steering wheel or here on the central compartment. You need to enter or change that manually by entering the thing called driving profile. There is a couple of drive modes, same ones as in the Explorer. So we have 5 dedicated drive modes: Eco, Sport, Individual, Normal, and Traction. Traction is, as it sounds, is for more off-road driving, and since this is a 4-wheel drive car, it will probably help you to navigate through bad conditions. Eco is, as it sounds, you really feel that it kind of lowers the power when switching over to Eco, and the accelerator gets more numb, a bit more unresponsive, I think is the best word for it. Then you have Sport, and it gets a bit lighter and a bit more responsive on the accelerator. The Sport mode is also the mode that gives you all the power. In Eco mode, it takes some time to build up the acceleration. Even if it's not slow, it's a big difference compared to the Sport one. And I mean, it's a fast car, 340 horsepower and 0 to 100 in 5.3 seconds. That's not bad, because I mean, this is a 2.2 ton car almost. So despite the heavy weight, it's fast. And I think it's among the fastest on the MEB platforms. The one I use is Individual, and that's the one you can customize depending on your needs. And there is a couple of different areas that's customizable. The first one is the driving dynamics. You can set it to normal and sport. I put it into sport. Steering wheel mode is normal or sport. In sport mode, it gets a bit more torquey and stiff compared to normal, but it's still not too stiff. It's still fairly soft, I would say, compared to a BMW, for instance. The drive, Eco, Normal, Sport, and Adaptive Cruise Control, ACC, so that's more the aggressiveness of it. Eco, Normal, Sport, and the final setting is the air conditioning, Normal or Eco. I'm glad that Ford waited for the new drivetrain with the more powerful motor and the slightly bigger battery pack, because suddenly, from being like a mediocre or fairly old car to powerful and good charging car. And above that also a efficient drivetrain, because it doesn't draw that more energy than the older drivetrains with the older motors. Despite having a lot more horsepower, it's still efficient, and you can still crank out a lot of range out of this car. And if you want to know the more exact range of this car in real life, I recommend you to watch this video, because this is about range, cabin noise, and charging of this specific Ford Capri. Very good information if you are into the market of buying a EV, or especially this one. Let me talk about the suspension. Before we do that, I just need to turn off that speed warning, as I showed earlier. Easy with a shortcut on the top. So now it's gone. The suspension is not active. There is no active dampers. There's traditional coil springs. But it's good. It is not as good as the disect system from Volkswagen, that adaptive dampers, but this one is finely tuned. I think it's a very good blend between being sporty but also comfortable, because first off, the cabin is silent despite being a bit hollow in the doors. That tells me that the insulation is probably not that much, but it's still a fairly silent cabin, and it doesn't feel more noisy than the other MEB cars, and they are in general comfortable cars. That also goes for the Capri, and it is not too mushroomy when it comes to the body roll. It feels stable, doesn't get you seasick, despite being a bit higher, since it's a SUV or CUV. It still handles good, and it's really not too harsh. I mean, I know that some of you have been asking if like the suspension can handle potholes and bad road conditions, and I think this one can, because I normally drive a Tesla Model Y. This one is so much better when it comes to the suspension. It's so much more comfort in this one, and you feel that in all road conditions, I should say, because there's a lot more comfort in the suspension than in a Tesla Model Y, for instance. And it doesn't feel worse than the Volkswagen cars. May feel slightly better. There is no missed sounds at all, and I think it behaves good in all conditions I have tried to put it in. One thing that I didn't mention is the head-up display. The premium version, or this one, has the head-up display included, and it's using Volkswagen's head-up display. You can tell by looking at the graphics. It's showing you some advanced things like fronts in car view, etc., when you utilize the self-driving capabilities or the ACC system. But it's not the premium version or the better version of the head-up display. This is the basic one. So you can't equip the Capri or the Explorer with Volkswagen's augmented reality head-up display. That's sad, because that head-up display is one of the best head-up displays ever. I have turned off the ECS, put it into ECS Sport, and I have entered the Sport mode, because this car is more fun to drive than you think. I mean, it's big, as I said before, but it's still possible to have a pleasant and fun drive in it. It's a nice car to drive, and it's almost as fun as the Cupra Born VZ. I mean, that one is rear-wheel drive, so this one has a couple of horsepowers more, but it doesn't feel that more heavy. I mean, it's probably like 150 kilograms heavier than that one, because it has the same battery pack, etc., so it doesn't weigh that much less than this one does. So that's a good thing. And when you turn off the traction control, you can really do some crazy stuff. It feels like it still engages somewhat because it's in sport mode, so it doesn't turn off completely. There's a lot of more power at the rear. I mean, that's the powerful motor delivering 286 horsepower. I think this one at the front is a induction motor delivering like 95 horsepower, something in that ballpark. So there is a lot more power at the rear, and you feel that, but in a good way. I mean, the front motor compensates for some extra grip and gives you a bit more of a traction. That one is the one that does the job for you. So let me try to summarize my experience and my view on the Ford Capri. First off, let me walk through the prices. The starting price of the Capri with a small battery pack and the standard equipment is 45 or 46,000 euros, 500,000 Swedish crowns. This one, long range, all-wheel drive with the tow hitch, the lucid red color, that's also extra. It stops at around 700,000 Swedish crowns or 62 or 63,000 euros. That's also with the heat pump. Because that's one thing, heat pump is not included. And here in Scandinavia, we are really used to get that included in the car because the other MEB cars comes with the heat pump as a standard. The Ford's does not though, so you need to add the heat pump. Don't miss that one. And I think they have kind of a introduction campaign, so I think you can get it for free, included now at the beginning. So that's good. I would probably not go without the heat pump. I mean, with that said, this is the same kind of car, the same drivetrain as the GTX ID4, or the GTX ID5 is probably the best comparison. Since it's the same platform, it has the same motors, etc. This one is a tad quicker, 0 to 100, and I think they are equally fun to drive. Price-wise, they are close if you take the heat pump into consideration. So when speccing it with all these things, it is not that cheap anymore. It's more or less a premium price tag to it. And it doesn't really live up to that price tag when it comes to certain aspects. I mean, some of the interiors, maybe some of the design features or equipment in the car does not live up to that price tag. The seats does not. The door sides does not. Some of the interior details really doesn't. What does though, I think, is the technology, the drivetrain. I mean, the power, the efficiency, the range, the battery size, the charging is on par with the other cars in the same price class. Depending on how you see on it and what's important for you, it can be a good car for you. Another thing worth mentioning, here in Sweden, the warranty of the Fords comes with 5 years as a standard, compared to a Volkswagen that comes with 2 years for the same car. That's a big difference. So what do you think about the Ford Capri? Is this the best take on the MEB platform yet? Let me know in the comments below. Share your thoughts. Is this worth the name Capri? I don't know. Do you? As I always say, please subscribe, like, and engage. And most importantly, stay electric. Thank you for watching. Speak to you soon.